Hi, everyone. This is Vera Kichanova from Free Cities Foundation. We support innovation and governance around the world to bring more freedom and prosperity. Today, we shall delve into the uncharted waters together with Joe Quirk, president of the Seasteading Institute. Hello, Joe.
Thanks for inviting me, Vera. It's good to see you again.
Joe called himself a Seavangelist, together with Patrick Friedman, who was my guest last week. He wrote a book called Seasteading: How Floating Nations Will Restore the Environment, Enrich the Poor, Cure the Sick, and Liberate Humanity from Politicians. Wow, that's a very bold promise. He also directed the documentary, The First Seasteaders, about a prototype seastead built off the coast of Thailand. Joe, it's great to have you here. So let's start.
All right.
The Seasteading Institute was founded almost 15 years ago. What have your team achieved since then? What are you most proud of?
We have accelerated towards the first seastead faster than I ever could have imagined. So I wasn't there 15 years ago. I discovered seasteading probably 11 years ago. Mm-hmm. And when I first learned about it, it was kind of a fringe movement. It was demonized in the press. It was, rich people want to create evil islands of selfishness to get away from the rest of us. It couldn't have looked worse in the press. And I realized I had to completely turn this around, because the way we're going to make this happen is to attract 10,000 times more brains to it. And we used to, when I wrote the book, I was imagining where we would be in 2050. But once you engage enough creativity and you inspire enough marine engineers and lawyers and donors and aquapreneurs, these things accelerate very fast. So in a decade, we've moved from being a fringe movement of weirdos that's mostly hated in the mainstream press to being featured in every mainstream article you can name, and actually building the first commercial seastead.
So you believe that the public opinion has warmed towards seasteading?
It really has. It's a provocative idea to start a peaceful society on your own initiative on the ocean. I don't know why that's provocative. I think people are terrified we might set a better example. But it's winning hearts and minds very quickly. And if you offend 10 people with your new idea, at least one person is inspired by it and comes to help you, often for free.
So before we talk about your most recent project, the closest you have probably come so far to creating a real-life floating community was in French Polynesia. But politics happens, as always happened, and mess things up. What can be done, in your view, to sort of shield projects like that from politics?
We have to build something as quickly as possible. Chad and Nadia, who were featured in the documentary you mentioned, who lived on the first seastead prototype off the coast of Thailand, they were probably our two most devoted volunteers at Blue Frontiers, the company I co-founded to build seastead communities in French Polynesia. And he based his new company, Ocean Builders, largely on the problem with Blue Frontiers, which is we were talking so much about what we were going to do, and we weren't building anything fast enough. So it allowed people's imaginations to imagine all sorts of terrifying things. And Chad was always saying, as a volunteer, just build something, just get something on the water, just to show people that it's not scary. So that's what he devoted himself to in Thailand. He and his partner, who are now building in Panama, they built something very simple for a cost of 150,000 US dollars, tax included, off the coast of Thailand, just to demonstrate you could build something very stable in high waves. So I think then that caused other problems which we didn't expect. So we're trying all sorts of different strategies. But I think the problem with talking about seasteading is that people's imaginations run all over the place. They imagine Waterworld, the movie. And I think what we're focused on now is building something, showing people that it's environmentally restorative. Instead of explaining it all the time, we want something to show people and invite people to visit and use their own judgment.
Mm-hmm. But you said that it shouldn't, we shouldn't talk about it to make things scary, but the Thai government, as far as we know, was still scared of 2 people on a floating platform.
Yes, and I'm writing a book about how that could happen. And people often say the Thai government. It was actually the Thai Navy. So the short version is Machiavellian backstabbing in a corrupt military dictatorship made the Thai Navy earnest to save face. So they tried to make an example out of these 2 people. And I'm writing a whole book about their crazy 10-day escape from the Thai Navy and rescue in Singapore, and what motivated the Thai Navy to do this. It's called The Freest Person in the World, which was Chad's last words that he posted on Facebook before he ran, thinking he was probably going to die that day. So yeah, they lived a Hollywood movie that would make Tom Cruise proud, and I'm finishing up the book about it.
You should sell it to Netflix, I guess.
If this isn't made into a movie, I don't even know what to think. Real people lived a real crazy chase movie, and it's all true. So
last week we met at the Liberty in Our Lifetime conference in Prague, and you presenting something very special, a brand new thing, a floating home, which you called the Sea EcoPod. What is it, and most importantly, who is that for?
It will be owned by the Seasteading Institute. If you look at my presentation at the Liberty in Our Lifetime conference, you'll see what it looks like.
Will it be published for those who were not at the conference? Where can our viewers have a look at the prototypes?
I noticed the Liberty in Our Lifetime conference already uploaded the YouTube video of my talk and many other talks, and I posted it on my social media today. And it will be what we call a CB&B. It'll be owned by the nonprofit Seasteading Institute, and it will be a demonstration project to show people that you can build something completely stable in high waves that's safe and fun, environmentally restorative, and really cool and potentially free. So we're going to run a little business, invite people to come out and stay on it. It has a 360-degree view of the ocean, both above the water and below the water, has an underwater room. We haven't built it yet, but we're in the process of building it, and we're in the process of raising money. And whoever donates to the Seastead Showcase will get their name on the first great symbol of liberty on the sea, which I think will make history. Will
they get a free day, night in this floating pod, the CB&B as well?
Yes, yes. As a matter of fact, we're soon to start our NFT campaign, where you can buy NFTs of the showcase, which can be cashed in for nights on the Seastead.
Awesome.
And if we succeed, hopefully those NFTs will go up in value and people will trade them. So that's to incentivize people to donate to the showcase.
So the first one will be nonprofit. It will be like a demonstration. But I remember that another speaker at the conference, Grant Romond, he also talked about this project from the developer side. And he said that the sea will provide the greatest real estate, will provide the greatest real estate opportunity of the 21st century. So do you agree that in perspective, there will be a whole market for this EcoPods, SeaPods, CB&Bs?
If the nonprofit can demonstrate that it works, I think that will change everything. I think it will inspire aquapreneurs to think of ways they could use the oceans and the potential freedom on the oceans to push forward their own businesses. So consider all the land on Earth. The oceans is more than twice that. There's a huge, vast area we don't even live on planet Earth. We live on planet ocean. If you look at our planet from far away, you don't see green trees, you see blue. It's a blue marble. And from certain angles, all you see is blue. You can't even see the land. So we have a vast space out there to colonize. And if you look at it as a three-dimensional world, 99% of the living space is in the ocean. So long before we go to Mars, we're going to colonize the planet that's right in front of us. And I think calling our planet Earth is part of our land-based myopia. We're not actually seeing what's out there. And when you consider that almost half the world's surface is unclaimed by any government, you realize how much potential there is for startup countries on the ocean.
You mentioned that this EcoPod will be eco-restorative. What does it mean?
So I'm sitting in a house right now. I'm very proud of my house. But in order to build the foundation of this house, I had to kill the life that's right here, put something on it. If you float a foundation on the ocean, you provide a home for life. Everything that floats on the ocean becomes something that all sorts of life attaches to, and an ecosystem naturally grows on it, and fish come. So every seastead you build increases the amount of life on the ocean. And it's funny, boats, this is a problem for boats because boats remain stable on the ocean by moving. So all the life, what we call barnacles and biofouling, is attaching to boats. So you have to bring your boat to dock, put it up on pilings, and then scrape off all this life, which is really just bad for the ocean. Seasteads that remain permanently at sea, what boaters call biofouling, we call a garden, a farm. So imagine if every home you build increases the amount of ecosystems on the planet. And all this is very good. In order for seasteads to last a long time, they have to attract calcium carbonate from the ocean, which will basically encase your seastead in like a seashell, which is what coral is made of. So the only way to have seasteads last and be resilient to corrosion is to turn them into little coral reef ecosystems, man-made. I think once people actually look out their underwater windows and see this, they'll realize this is a new paradigm shift that's way beyond sustainability. It's way better than sustainability.
All that you describe makes me think that it was a very difficult, challenging engineering task. Where did you find the engineers who decided to do something that's never been done before?
Here's where you're going to make me feel really good. I just believed the people were out there. If you inspire them about what's possible, they will get involved on their own initiative. That's what I said a decade ago. So I'm like, we need a big book and not a bunch of obscure blogs for Silicon Valley nerds. We need a mainstream book about real aquapreneurs really trying to do this from all these different angles. So it's true, we attracted a whole lot of people to this, but one particular person who I featured in my talk, Rudiger Koch, is a German engineer with a lot of success under his belt, and he read the book twice, and he said, all this is doable, you just need an engineer. So he has run the experiments for attracting calcium carbonate. The main thing he wanted to prove is this doesn't have to be $1 billion project. You can make this affordable for the average middle-class Westerner. He says, I want to make the Model T of seasteads. And he is charging forward doing this, engineering every aspect of it. He really wants to prove the point that we can settle the seas inexpensively and profitably. So I was, not long after that, the problem with engineers is they just make things kind of ugly. That first prototype was just a box on a stick, looked like a tin can. And then on the way to Acapulco, I met a serial entrepreneur who lived on a floating home in Canada. And when I described for him what was happening, he started thinking like a designer. He started thinking like Steve Jobs. As a matter of fact, we call him C Jobs. So it's almost like the engineer is Wozniak, who knows how to build the technical thing. And Grant Moment, who presented, is like the Steve Jobs, except much nicer, who comes in with the design and the vision for how you can sell this to people. So it's like the two hemispheres of the human brain are working together on this thing. So they are thinking of things I never would have imagined. My only service is to tell the story. We're meaning-seeking creatures, and we get our meaning from a story. And if you experience a story and want to be a part of it, that'll inspire you more than money.
Yeah, as far as I remember, you wrote some fiction novels.
Yes, I've written fiction novels.
So storytelling is your specialty.
Yes.
So you said that most of these people just found you when they got infected with that idea. So you have engineers, architects, experts and lawyers, you have storytellers like yourself. Are there any people that your team is currently missing that you want to reach out?
We need more lawyers to scrutinize our position on the amount of freedom we can get on the sea. And what we need most of all is people connected with flagging registries. Because once we move this thing out onto the ocean, it's going to be, we're on a legal frontier there. Once we're out on the high seas. And once we're out on the seas, we don't want to negotiate with governments. We want to negotiate with flagging registries, which governments sometimes franchise their sovereignty rights out to. For instance, Liberia is a very popular and successful flagging registry run by a private company who reached out to the Seasteading Institute at one point. So we need more connections and advice from experts in how flagging registries work.
So in your presentation, you said that a single family ecopod will be exempt from most international conventions, even in territorial seas. Why did you choose Panama as a host country for this prototype?
Well, for one thing, Panama is very eager for innovation. They don't have a navy, so some of us are a little touchy about navies since Thailand. Panama is very aware that they've profited immensely from their special economic zones. So proposing a special sea zone is not that radical to them. Panama is where the Panama Canal is, so it's the center of trade in the Western Hemisphere. And it's 40 miles between two of the biggest oceans in the world. And it's near the equator where all the calm seas are and low waves and turquoise seas, which is ideal for seasteading. So once we ramp up these seasteads and SeaPods, we can start sending them through the canal out either side of Panama into various oceans of the world. It's a perfect country to work with. And so far, the Panama government is in full support of the project.
I'm very much wondering, so how does it work? You come to, like, say, the Minister of Infrastructure of Panama and say, do you mind if we build a floating city here, like a bunch of people living on these things that look like spaceships, and they don't look at you like you're crazy? So how do you persuade them?
Well, what's interesting, one of our ambassador in the Seasteading Institute, lead ambassador in Panama, is named Aldo Antitori. He's another gentleman who got inspired by the vision, and he has a lot of connections, including with the government. So he did a lot of pitching this idea to people in the government before Tom Bell and myself and the CEO of Ocean Builders eventually showed up and presented to various departments. So we've had a lot of success with the higher ups who are interested, who are looking for new futuristic innovation. The struggle is with the regulators at the low levels allowing this to happen and knowing how to categorize it, rewriting the rules, because it's not a boat, it's not a barge, it's a new type of thing. So if the president is for it and the minister of the economy is for it, I think we can get the rest of the country behind us. Another thing we're doing is we're just winning over the hearts and minds of Panamanians. I mean, I forget, maybe 50 people have been hired so far in a relatively poor area, above market rates. It's been featured on the news. So far, we're popular in Panama.
Awesome. And just in case, I don't know, tables turn like it happens in countries with not very stable institutions, is it possible to take these pods and move them to another part of the ocean?
Absolutely. We're already considering plan B, C, D, E. We're looking at moving it to Florida. We're looking at moving it to the Bahamas. This is all in the event that something goes wrong. Other countries nearby have expressed interest. What I hope is that Panama will be the nursery for these things. And then as it ramps up, we could sell them to other countries and other places.
Yeah, it also sounds like a good tourist attraction. So it could generate the new inflow of tourists.
Yeah, we did a study of underwater hotels near the coast around the world. There's like a dozen of them. And they charge thousands of dollars a night. Now, imagine a floating underwater hotel. I don't think we're going to charge that much. We're going to keep it cheap because we want normal people to come out and see it. But I think it'll be a gigantic tourist attraction, especially if you can see it in the distance. It's intentionally designed to look like the Jetsons.
There's probably already a virtual queue for that. Is there?
Ocean Builders tells me there is.
The last question, Joe. There is, of course, a fair amount of skepticism about such projects because many of them, so I work in architecture part-time, and I'm seeing tons of this flashy, futuristic renders of colonies built on Mars, cities built on water, vertical cities that looks like enormous green towers. And most of them never pass the render stage. What makes you optimistic about this particular one?
Because those inspiring visions are very inspiring. That's what I was imagining when I was writing the book. But once you want to actually get started, you have to think like, well, what's the business model that's going to justify the cost of this? And how much would the cost be? So you have to get the minimal viable product so that anyone could do it. And then you need the minimal viable business to pay back the cost of building your little seastead. So that's what we've tried to do. We've tried to scale it down. So far, it is mostly in the render stage, except for the shallow water model that's floating in Panama right now. And you could look at that to see what ours is going to look like. But ultimately, we hope if we build one, they will come. And enough with the big visions of giant floating cities. Let's start with just one covered wagon on the blue frontier. Just give me one technology that can be replicated and can pay for itself through some sort of business. I think if the Seasteading Institute pulls that off, we'll inspire entrepreneurs around the world to start building communities.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for your time. We're very much looking forward to your new book and obviously to seeing the progress of the first ever seastead. For our viewers, I will include below the video, there will be the links to all the projects that we've mentioned, to Joe's personal social networks accounts, so you can stay on touch and keep watching the Seasteading Institute making history. Thank you very much.
Thanks for inviting me, Vera.